everyone. First up on the docket tonight, this could be a make-or-break day in the Michael Jackson case. Another accuser in the Jackson case held his own under heated cross-examination by Jackson's attorney, Thomas Mesereau, yesterday. The son of a housekeeper who worked for Jackson described in detail 3 incidents. 2 where he says Jackson touched his genitals over his clothing while tickling him, and 1 where he says Jackson touched him under his clothes, all of it more than 10 years ago. Today, Thomas Mesereau tried to poke holes in that story by asking the now young man to recall statements he made in 4 separate interviews about the incidents of alleged abuse. Mesereau going after the witness about varying accounts he supposedly gave to prosecutors, jumping from interview to interview, clearly confusing the witness. At one point, the judge had to step in, warning Mesereau, quote, "You're going to have to direct, if you're going to question in this manner, you're going to have to direct it to specific times. There were 3 interviews." "Okay, I'm sorry, Your Honor." Judge, "And you're being unfair to the witness, in my opinion." NBC's Mike Taibbi was in the courtroom today, and he joins us now. Mike, this sounds great for the prosecution and horrible for Team Jackson.
Yeah, I think on its face it does, Dan. There's no question this was a powerful witness. But let me say a couple of things. Number one, your characterization of it being fierce cross-examination, a heated cross-examination, I'm not sure in the courtroom it came out that way. I think it was persistent, and I think, frankly, Tom Mesereau was being very careful in front of a jury that has 4 Hispanic members, by our estimation, to not jump on this very sympathetic witness, a very compelling witness, and make it seem as though he was harassing him. There was that one admonition by the judge, as you point out. 2 points let me make right now. One, there's a whole lot of case to try in this yet. I'm sure Ron Richards will tell us later that Tom Mesereau is planning a substantial defense of the instant case. But the second point is that this old evidence, this so-called 1108 evidence from uncharged events in the past, is extremely powerful. It's either going to prove one pattern or the other. Either that Michael Jackson is a serial child molester whose grooming activities and prior molestations prove the current case or tend to prove the current case, or he's a serial victim, a secret drunk, as I suggested last week, who maybe is blind to the ways his own words and actions have invited his own victimization. One pattern or the other is going to be proven. Everything's on the table. Now, about the cross-examination today, here's how it went. 3 quotes from the accuser and how Mesereau dealt with it. Accuser said about the second alleged incident. "We were watching cartoons again. We were laying in a sleeping bag, Jackson behind me, spooning me. Again, he started with the tickling. It was longer tickling. I wasn't laughing as much this time. He was tickling me from behind in my genital area, and I was laughing and trying to tickle him back." Question, were you aware it was happening while it was happening? Answer, yes. Question, how long did it happen? A, answer, about 2 cartoons worth. Question, did you feel uncomfortable at the time? Answer, yes and no. No, because it's all fun. It's supposed to be innocent because you're a little kid. But yes, because it's not right. Very powerful on direct. What Mesereau was able to do with that was to bring back the statement this then boy made in his interview all those years ago, in which he said that the tickling lasted about 30 seconds. When under direct, he said 2 cartoons worth would be more than 5 minutes if he was watching Woody Woodpecker. Small thing, I'm not sure the jury picked that up. Second example. The boy said, now 24-year-old man, "In the 5th grade, I told my friends I knew Michael Jackson and it was cool. They didn't believe me, but it was cool. In junior high, it was no longer cool to know somebody who had issues with kids." Again, the kind of thing that can resonate with a jury. Mesereau's approach to it. Wait a second, that means you knew about the other big scandal that was ignited in 1993 involving the first major accuser against Jackson, and it turns out that the boy or the boy's family did know about that claim, and he did make his statement and get with his own attorneys after all that had happened. Last example, again from the boy on direct, he put the money in my shorts because I pulled it out of my shorts, and that's when my mom saw it. And under direct examination by Ron Zonin, the deputy prosecutor, he said he put it inside his shorts. Mesereau later on got the boy's mother to admit that she in fact took it out of a pocket because he was wearing pants with an outside pocket. These are small things, but Tom Mesereau couldn't go much harder than
Mike,
that.
stay with me, because my take, I've said it before, I'll say it again, if Jackson gets convicted, I think it will be based on the power of these other alleged incidents of molestation. I think this could be a turning point in the trial.
There has been more intense testimony today in the Michael Jackson trial. The son of a former Neverland maid wrapped up his testimony, recounting his tale of alleged molestation by the pop superstar. MSNBC's Jennifer London has been following the trial in Santa Maria, California, and she joins us live from outside the courthouse. Fill us in, Jennifer.
Well, Allison, it was perhaps at times a frustrating cross-examination for lead defense attorney Tom Mesereau. He kept referring to 4 separate police interviews. The second accuser's memory getting very hazy on these interviews. He didn't remember details like when the interviews were, who was present, or what he actually said during the interviews. Perhaps Tom Mesereau trying to point out that the boy's memory is so hazy with regard to the interviews, but he seems to remember the details of the alleged molestation quite well. During the first interview with police in the early 1990s, Tom Mesereau pointing out that the second accuser repeatedly denied that any molestation occurred. However, under redirect this morning, the second accuser saying he was embarrassed and he didn't want anyone to know Michael Jackson molested him. He went on to say in the 5th grade it was cool to know Michael Jackson, but in junior high he was teased for knowing someone who had a reputation for acting inappropriately towards children. Michael Jackson was never charged with any crime with regard to the second accuser's allegations. The two did reach a financial settlement. However, the prosecution is trying to point out that Jackson has a history of molesting young boys.
As a matter of law, the jury simply has to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that Michael Jackson molested the current accuser. This witness can help them do that if they believe him.
On the stand before the break, one of the civil attorneys who helped the boy and his mother reach a financial settlement with Michael Jackson. Allison, back to you.
Jennifer London reporting from California. Thanks.
Jurors have a break today in the Michael Jackson trial after a big day in court Tuesday with both the pop star's former housekeeper and her son on the stand. MSNBC's Jennifer London has more from Santa Maria on the latest developments in the trial.
Hello from Santa Maria, California. Court is not in session today in Michael Jackson's child molestation trial, but the jury still has plenty to think about. Earlier this week, they heard emotional testimony from a second accuser who says on 3 occasions Michael Jackson molested him. He said he never told anyone about the incidents, and even to this day, he has not talked about it openly with many people. He said he never told his mother, and he didn't tell the authorities. Yet in 1993, the police showed up at his door and wanted to talk to him. Some of the jurors may be wondering if he didn't tell anyone about what happened, how'd the police know to talk to him? I asked the former Santa Barbara sheriff that very question.
In the 1993 investigation, in the joint investigation with Santa Barbara Sheriff and LAPD, we talked to a lot of kids. In this case, we were told to go talk to the boy by somebody from Neverland.
The jury also heard from the second accuser's mother, who was also Michael Jackson's former personal maid. She said on 2 occasions she saw the pop star in bed with a young boy. She also said she saw the same boy in the shower with Michael Jackson. She did say under cross-examination, however, in a sworn deposition she gave in the 1990s, she said she never saw Michael Jackson molest a child. Both the mother and this accuser settled with Michael Jackson for roughly $2 million, and the mother said she did receive a $20,000 payment for an interview she gave to Hard Copy.
Hi, everyone. First up on the docket tonight, big news out of the Michael Jackson case. News that, if true, could mean big trouble for the case. During a court break on Monday, at least 1, maybe as many as 3 members of the media allegedly overheard something from the patio outside the jury room, a conversation that seems to have been between jurors where they were mocking a crucial witness in the case against Jackson, the 23-year-old man who said Michael Jackson molested him starting when he was just 7 years old. Former Santa Barbara Sheriff Jim Thomas joins me now with the details. Jim, you heard this one right from the source. What do you know?
Well, Dan, let me tell you what I know, and I think it's important that we keep it at what I know because rumors are really going rampant here. But on Monday after court, I learned that a person had said that he had heard jurors joking about the victim who had testified on Monday, which was the victim from 1993. I went and talked to that individual. He indeed said that as he walked by the jury assembly area, and if you can look behind me, you'll see a green fence. That is an area that is outside the jury room that the jurors are allowed to congregate in, and it's basically a wire fence with a little covering. You cannot see the jurors there, but if you walk by, you can hear them, and I have heard them before. Anyway, this person, who was a crew member for one of the British broadcasting people, Sky News, said that as he walked by, one of the jurors was saying something to the effect of, wah, wah, he touched me, or boo-hoo, he touched me, and that was coincidental only because that was right after the testimony by that young accuser where he had broken down when he was talking about the alleged molestation. After that, court was over. The next morning, I talked with the pool coordinator, Peter Chaplin. advised him of what I knew, pointed out the individual who knew it. I know that he talked to him, and at that point, that's about where we know.
And Jim, there is no investigation of this as far as we know, correct?
Well, I don't know that there's no investigation. We're being told by the court that this is an unsubstantiated rumor and that there is no investigation. And from my background, frankly, Dan, I have a little problem with that because you can't come to the conclusion of something being unsubstantiated unless you first investigate it. I'm hoping that they're telling us that, but that in actuality there is an investigation going on.
Jim, stick around because here's what the pool producer has said, quote, Judge Melville is aware of the report. It is an unsubstantiated rumor and there is no investigation. That's according to the court administrator. My take, it's an unsubstantiated rumor because no one's taken the time to investigate it. There's too much at stake here, and this is an issue that is too important to ignore. Joining me now is criminal defense attorney Mercedes Colwin and Connecticut State Prosecutor Susan Filan. All right, Mercedes, first to you. This is I think, huge. If this is even possible that jurors are already mocking one of the key prosecution witnesses, they have to investigate, right?
Yeah, they should. But, Dan, so many jurors joke around. It's not like they're sitting around saying, oh, Michael Jackson's a pedophile, or, you know, he definitely molested this man. I mean, they're joking around at it. This is the stress relief for these jurors. They're sitting there bored out of their tears. They're there for 6-7 hours and stoic, listening. And this is how they relieve stress. I mean, that's what jurors do.
That's a nice psychological analysis of the jurors. But the bottom line is, Susan Filan, if they made these comments, if it's true that they were sort of saying, wham, 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 Michael Jackson touched me, those jurors are gone from the case.
It would seem to me that the judge would ask the lawyers into chambers and ask them, what's your pleasure? Do you make any application before the court? Do you have any motion? Do you wish for any investigation? My guess is that that happened, and based on everyone's talking, because don't forget there's a lot of strategy involved. Let's say there's an investigation, and let's say somebody moves for a mistrial. Is that in the prosecution's best interest? Is this case going to get any better for them the second time around?
Right.
Perhaps the defense is quite happy with where things are and also doesn't want a mistrial. And the other thing I wonder if the state's asking themselves is, has jeopardy attached? Are we in trouble there? Do we just need to press forward?
One other thing, too, Dan, what the judge can do is they can step forward and do a curative instruction, simply say to these jurors, I don't want any discussion regarding any testimony in this trial. I have said this to you early on in the during the opening statements. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to remind you when the need arises. And that's how they deal with it.
Jim, as a former law enforcement official, is it possible they're just not telling us that there's an investigation and that maybe there is one?
Oh, that's certainly possible. Dan, I'm certain that the gentleman who told me what he heard is what he heard. However, that could be misconstrued. They could have been saying wah wah about something else and not Michael Jackson. So there is a possibility that the comments that were made were not directed toward that witness. We have to keep that possibility in mind as well.
All right. Look, we're going to stay on top of this. If we get any news on this as to what's happening with this jury, any developments, anything else, we'll bring it to you.